Welcome to the Summer of Love 2.0. Hey, folks, how's it going? I'm sure most of you can remember the summer of 2020. It's going to go down in history as the uh, summer of love, to quote a Democrat. Um, and I don't know if how many of you are aware of it, remember it, but on several news channels, there were reporters covering some of these protests back in 2020, where they were talking about the fiery but mostly peaceful protests that were going on. And in the background, you could see cars on fire, people throwing Molotov cocktails at cars, at police cars, at businesses, what have you. So they captioned it fiery but mostly peaceful protests. Well, here we are again. Ironically, 4 years later, there was a long spell in between where there were almost no protests. There were a few here and there, but not many. And they certainly weren't covered by the news. The ones that did crop up weren't really covered by the news. Uh, the only one that they really wanted to talk about was January 6th. Everything else was forgotten about. But here we are again. Over the past few weeks, we've been seeing more and more pro Palestine, pro Hamas, anti Israel, anti Jew protests going on. Particularly over the last couple of weeks, this has been going on at colleges, where you have outside agitators coming in, uh, starting protests, occupying the buildings in protest of the war uh, between Israel and Gaza and Hamas. Um, I'm going to tell you something that some of you might not even agree with, but it's what I believe. And if you don't agree with it, that's fine. You're free for the time being. This is still a free country, at least in theory, if nothing else. Um, but you're free to have your own opinions, and you're free to disagree with me. Uh, but I'm going to argue that the vast majority of people protesting Israel right now, and more specifically, the vast majority of people uh, occupying these college campuses and occupying these buildings and protesting there, the majority of these people have very little understanding of uh, what's been going on between Israel and the Palestinian people and Gaza and Hamas and what have you. Uh, Furthermore, the vast majority of them don't really care beyond the social what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, I'm drawing a blank on the word that I'm looking for. Anyway, they really don't care on the facts of the matter. They're more concerned about just hitting those key keywords, those buzzwords, and trying to uh, stand up for the cause or the new thing, I should say. Think about it when war when Russia invaded Ukraine. All across Facebook, you would see people throw up profile pictures with the Ukrainian flag in the background. Before that, it was the rainbow flag for the LGBTQ community and BLM and what have you. This is nothing more than uh, the next social cause to care about. I'm not I'm not saying that the issues between Israel and Palestine, uh, what's going on in Gaza, what's going on with Hamas and what have you. I'm not saying that that's not important and that there's not some serious things there that need to be resolved, but that is a conflict and a disagreement that is it goes back um, decades, and one might could say even hundreds of years. It's not going to get settled anytime soon. Certainly not by protests at colleges, and not really even by the war that's going on right now. Um, and you can hate me for saying that if you want to, but I don't believe the conflict that's going on, the war that Israel is raging in Gaza, and the potential war coming between Israel and Iran, I honestly don't think that was going to solve any issues. It's simply another flare up of the same old uh, disagreements, the same old issues that has been around for decades on decades. My point is that the vast majority of these protesters here, that's not really what they're protesting for. Yeah, and if you really look into it, the hardcore protesters on these college campuses are coming from outside the campuses. They're not students. Uh, they're outside agitators coming in just trying to stir up trouble. You've got all these other people, all these college students that are left leaning, that are ready to jump on the next great cause, the next big thing, uh, so that they can say that they did something, so that they can make themselves feel good and make everybody else feel good. Like they're really doing something important. And I hate to tell you, but they're really not. Most of the people at these protests can't tell you why they're there, and what they're really protesting. Everybody has their own opinion. Everybody has their own idea of what's being protested. There's no real unifying theme aside from we hate Israel, we hate the United States. That's really the only unifying theme among all of this. Beyond that, when you look at what they're actually demanding, uh, it's such a wide range, much like the Summer of Love in 2020. All those protests, much like those protests, the laundry list of grievances and demands, it's so long and varied that there's no real focus on attaining any certain goal. And I'm going to tell you that, at least in my opinion, a lot of these agitators are coming in. They got stirred up, not because Hamas attacked Israel, but more because Israel fought back. And you can argue the whys and wherefores all you want. Um, I don't really care because I'm not going to get into a philosophical debate about who's in the right and who's in the wrong, because both sides have got dirty hands. I'm going to be honest with you. Uh, and in war, bad things happen on both sides. But be that as it may, most of these protests didn't start until they didn't care that Israel got attacked. They only cared that Israel retaliated, is my point. And it gave them another opportunity to revolt against this idea of the United States, this idea of America. us supporting our allies, whether you like it or not. Israel is an ally, uh, and we can debate whether the United States should be funding Israel to the level that we are. Honestly, I don't think we should any more than I think we should be sending billions and billions of dollars to Zelensky. I wish that money would stop flowing over there. I wish our money would stop flowing to a lot of places. But um, be that as it may, I can't control where the money's going right now. And it's going to a lot of places that I don't agree with, particularly countries that hate the United States. We're providing aid to countries that despise us. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Uh, but these protests are simply giving all of these extreme left-leaning people, all of these, I'm going to say it outright, they're uh, they're nothing but troublemakers. They are extremists, and a lot of them are could be and should be classified as domestic terrorists because of what they're doing, because of the techniques and methods that they're using to get their message across. You know, uh, somehow, and I don't understand it, but somehow threatening people's lives, beating people up for no reason, assaulting people, destroying buildings, destroying property is somehow supposed to bring peace and understanding. It's beyond me how that's supposed to work, but that's the ongoing theory. And these protests, as I've said, are doing nothing but giving a lot of these extremist people an opportunity to lash out at things that they don't understand, they don't agree with, and they despise. So my whole point to this video is to tell you that I think it also has a lot to do with the fact that we're coming up on an election year. We had all those protests in 2020. In 2021, we had a few, not many. We had a few, but they weren't really covered. There weren't that many. They weren't that violent. 2022, everything settled way down. Uh, 2023, things still settled that way down. I expected a lot more trouble than what we got. I expected a lot more civil unrest, and we didn't get it. But here, all of a sudden, it's election year, and it's just now. It's only March, and we started last month seeing more protests. And I think it's because of the election coming up. See, back in 2020, all of these protests, all of this violence, a lot of that was used. It was manipulated. It was staged, uh, and it was used to manipulate the elections. And again, you have the right to your own opinion, but that's my belief. Uh, I believe that it was definitely used to manipulate the outcome of the election, uh, or the selection, as some would call it. And I honestly believe if Donald Trump wasn't running this year, I still believe that we would have some protests to try to uh, sway the election towards the left side. But I honestly believe if Donald Trump wasn't running this year, it would be way less because if there's one man in this country that can uh, evoke such visceral hatred among the left, it's Donald Trump. And a lot of times people can't even uh, voice or uh, a lot of times people can't even give you a good reason why they hate the man. They just hate him. And sometimes you'll find that they hate him because of this, and this, but they're completely ignoring the fact that the politicians on the left side, people like Biden, Pelosi, whatever, are guilty of doing the same things. They're guilty of this, and this as well. Sometimes, uh, even more so than the Republicans. Personally, I don't like either party. I really don't. Um, and I've never tried to hide that fact. I believe both parties are experts at manipulating elections, at swaying the sentiment around election time to benefit them. They'll use tactics that I believe are really disgusting and immoral. But again, I honestly believe if Donald Trump wasn't running, we would still see protests. I have no doubt of that because these protests are going to continue to happen in an effort to push this entire country further to the left. The ultimate goal is to get this country to become socialist, communist in nature. Uh, so we would still have protests, we would still have riots, we would still have civil unrest. It might not be as pronounced as it will be in the years that Donald Trump is running for president because of the intense hatred people have for him. He's simply, uh, say what you want about the man, he is simply revealing how everybody feels in reality. He's showing you everybody's true colors. Uh, you really see what people are, what they're like, because of this division that's going on in the country. So it's my belief that as we approach the election, these protests, which are already getting out of hand, and surprisingly enough, they're actually arresting people and taking them to jail for uh, occupying these campuses and getting violent. And Democrats, along with Republicans, are both uh, getting irritated by this, which is another thing that surprises me. But I fully expect that as we approach, as we get closer to this election in November, that these protests will become more frequent and more violent. You will see more and more civil unrest. Uh, and we're going to see a lot more things that resemble the uh, the fiery but mostly peaceful protests of 2020. I still can't get over that, the absurdity of all of that. But my recommendation to you is that I believe we are in for some massive amount of civil unrest. And again, this will go either way, regardless of who wins, because if Biden wins another term, you're obviously going to have people on the Republican side that think that he stole the election again. And if Trump wins, you're going to have total chaos and outrage from the left because how dare he? You know, they're already setting the stage for the division in this country to be even greater, regardless of who wins this election. So, my recommendation to you is to prepare accordingly, stay vigilant, stock up on food and water. As I always say, stock up on food and water so that you can shelter indoors because there may be times this year where it might be uh, dangerous to go out to the stores. So if it comes to that situation where your community, your neighborhood, what have you, is overrun by violent protesters, you don't want to be getting out and going to the grocery store and doing things like that. You want to be able to shelter in place. And if you have the capability, bug out at least temporarily to a secure location. So stock up on food and water so that you can shelter in place. I highly recommend being able to getting the things that you need to be able to defend yourself and your home and your family. I know there are some people on here, some viewers of mine that don't believe in that. That's all well and good. I wish you the best in in the event that anything like that happens. Uh, Hopefully you'll be all right. I strongly disagree with you, but I respect your beliefs, even though I don't share them. Um, and just prepare accordingly, folks, because I've said it before during the last election that if Trump lost, um, I expected there to be violence in the streets, and if Biden won, I expected, if Biden lost, I expected there to be extreme violence in the streets. That didn't quite play out the way I expected it to. And for all you people saying that January 6th was an insurrection, you're an idiot. Because if you go back and compare things, January 6th was no more than the Republican version of the summer of fiery but mostly peaceful protests. It was a protest, and there's a lot of questionable things that happened during that time, during that event. But it's my belief, again, that it was nothing more than a protest that got out of hand, uh, possibly because of some uh, instigators and outside agitators that wanted to create a red flag event so that they could achieve certain goals. And I think that that really played into their hands considerably. Um, but I expect some chaos this November because again, if you have Biden win, you're going to have a lot of Republicans think that uh, there's there was some foul play there because you have a man that clearly does not have the mental capacity uh, to perform the duties of the President of the United States. And on the flip side of that, if Trump wins, you're going to have all of that outrage from the left. The left is going to go ballistic. I really believe that. So either way you look at it, I think this November plays out very, very violently. And while I don't uh, call for violence myself, I don't condone it. You need to be prepared for it. Anyway, this is running a little bit long. That's all I've got. That's all I wanted to talk about today. I appreciate you guys watching. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't. I really appreciate those. Uh, there is a lot of YouTube censorship with certain channels, and the liking, sharing, commenting, all of that really helps with the algorithms. It makes sure that people get to see my videos and videos of other creators like me. So I appreciate each and every one of those. But as always, folks, stay safe, stay vigilant, take care of yourselves and your families, keep prepping, don't get complacent, and until next time, I'll catch you later.